She tore me down in front of everyone at that dinner party, and all I did was sit there and take it in silence. Rachel was standing there, tilting her wineglass like she was brandishing a weapon, telling the whole table that even Marcus, my own best friend, had more to offer than I did. She waved her hand toward him while she said it, and the room just exploded with laughter. It wasn't even real laughter, it was that loud, uncomfortable kind of noise people make when they're forced to choose a side. Deep down, everyone at that table knew they shouldn't be laughing, but they couldn't stop themselves. I just sat there with a smile on my face. Isn't that the husband's job? You're supposed to just grin and bear it when your wife stabs you in the back in public, because making a scene would only make things worse. I could see Marcus shifting around in his chair. He looked incredibly awkward, but he had this grin plastered on his face because, honestly, what else was he going to do? My wife had just informed 8 people that my best friend was better endowed than I was. I reached for my glass of water and quietly said her name. My hand was steady as a rock, and I felt a strange sense of pride about that. Rachel just leaned over, smelling like wine, and kissed my cheek with those stained lips. She told me to lighten up, saying it was just a joke and that I knew she loved me. Just like that, the conversation moved on to safe topics like politics, vacations, and someone's new car. I nodded and laughed when I was supposed to, but inside, something was changing. It felt like something cold and sharp was forming in my chest. She didn't notice, of course. She never notices anything that isn't about her. Before long, she was the center of attention again, acting out some story about her fitness instructor. She's always been like that, vibrant, fearless, the kind of woman who takes over any room she walks into. I used to love that about her, but I realized then that I'd mistaken her cruelty for confidence. By the time we got home, she was still riding high on the wine and the social rush. She started asking if I saw the look on someone's face, but I cut her off and told her I'd be sleeping in the guest room. She looked at me like I was crazy, asking if I was really upset over a joke and telling me to grow up. I didn't argue. I just said goodnight and shut the door. Sitting there in the dark on the edge of the bed, I pulled out my phone. Marcus had texted me 20 minutes earlier asking if I was okay and saying how rough that was. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I pulled up my banking app. We had 47 grand in checking and over 180,000 in savings. That was all my inheritance, my hard-earned bonuses, and years of me being careful with money while Rachel spent whatever she wanted on anything that caught her eye. Then I checked Instagram. She didn't realize I still had her password from years ago when she was into some self-help book. I found her messages with Marcus, and they went back 6 months. They were talking about how dangerous it felt to meet for coffee and how she couldn't stop thinking about him. Every time I was working late, she was telling him to come over. I sat there and read all 47 messages. There weren't any photos, but it was a full-blown emotional affair. Marcus was actually the one holding back, telling her it would ruin me if they slept together. But Rachel just kept pushing and pushing. The last message from a few days ago was her telling him she wasn't joking at dinner and that he really did have more to offer. I spent 2 hours in that dark room reading those words over and over, building a wall around my heart where my love for her used to be. At 2 a.m., I called my lawyer. He sounded half asleep, but I told him I needed divorce papers filed first thing in the morning and that I wanted to move every cent that legally belonged to me. He asked if I was sure, and I told him to just do it. Then I texted my brother to borrow his truck on Saturday without asking any questions. Finally, I did something I probably shouldn't have, I screenshotted those messages and sent them to myself. Not for the lawyers, that's too easy. I had something else in mind. While Rachel was still snoring, I moved $115,000, my half plus a little extra for the trouble, into a private account. I found a furnished place across town and booked it right then. I didn't pack a single bag. I wanted to just disappear. By Saturday morning, I was gone before she even opened her eyes. I took my laptop, my clothes, and my dad's old watch, leaving my wedding ring right there on the kitchen counter. By noon, the bank account was empty. By 2, the papers were filed. By 5, I was sitting in a strange, empty apartment that smelled like industrial cleaner, just staring at my phone. Rachel had called me 17 times and was texting me, losing her mind about the money. I sent one reply. I told her to check her messages and talk to Marcus about the recording. There wasn't a recording, but I knew that would mess with her head. I watched those little typing dots on the screen appear and disappear for 10 minutes. Then Marcus called me, sounding totally panicked, asking what I'd told her and what recording I was talking about. I told him she'd humiliated me, and now it was her turn to be scared. He told me this wasn't like me, and I agreed. The man I used to be died at that dinner table. Everything really kicked off 3 days later when she showed up at my new place. I'm not sure how she tracked me down, but there she was. She looked a mess, smeared makeup, unwashed hair, wearing the same clothes from the day before. She didn't look like the woman who tried to destroy me a few days ago. She looked broken. I wouldn't let her in. She begged me, her voice shaking with a kind of desperation I hadn't heard in years. She asked if the recording was real, and I just told her it didn't matter. She was terrified that if Marcus had been documenting their affair, she'd lose her job, her family, and her reputation. I reminded her that she should have thought about that before she spent half a year trying to get into my best friend's bed. She tried to claim they never actually did anything, but I told her that didn't make it better. She begged him to betray me and then mocked me when he wouldn't. She whispered that it was just a joke, but I told her that jokes are supposed to be funny. What she did was an execution. She started crying, and I hated that it still got to me. You don't just stop caring after 10 years of marriage, no matter how much she hurt you. I still remembered the woman who supported me when I was struggling with my PhD and when my father passed away. I couldn't figure out how that woman and this one were the same person. She told me she was sorry and that she'd been unhappy, but I wasn't having it. I told her I knew exactly how unhappy she was while she was living in my house and spending my money while obsessing over another man. Look, I get it. I don't have a single solid excuse for what I did. I'm just trying to get you to see my side of things. I told her not to even bother, but she kept right on going anyway. You just stopped being there for me, she said. She told me it started months ago, maybe even longer than that. She claimed I'd walk through the front door and look right past her, like she was just another piece of furniture in the room. She felt like a ghost in her own home, in our own marriage, then her voice just kind of gave out on her. So, I went out and found someone who actually looked at me like I mattered, she whispered. Even if I knew it was wrong, even if I knew it would tear you apart. So what, is this all on me? I told her no, absolutely not. I'm just. She stopped and pressed her hands hard against her eyes. I'm trying to explain that I didn't do this because I stopped loving you, she said. I did it because I still do, and I just didn't know how to get through to you anymore. See, that's the thing about Rachel, that's why she's dangerous. She doesn't just tell a lie, she lives it. She'll sit there and rewrite the whole history of our lives until she's the victim of a situation she created. She turns herself into the misunderstood lead in her own personal tragedy, and she's so damn good at it that even now, watching her crumble right in front of me, part of me actually wants to believe her. There isn't a recording, I finally told her. She looked up at me, and I could see a tiny flicker of hope in her eyes. But I did forward every single one of those messages to my own phone, I continued. And I could send them to whoever I want. Your mom, your boss, every person who was at that dinner party the other night. That little bit of hope she had. It died right then and there. You wouldn't do that, she stammered. I reminded her that I'd already taken the money and filed the papers for the divorce. I asked her what made her think I wouldn't go the rest of the way. She just stared at me like I was a total stranger. Maybe I am. To be honest, I don't really recognize the guy I see in the mirror lately either. This cold, calculating version of myself who uses information as a weapon instead of just sitting down and talking. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "You want to see me beg? Fine, I'll beg. You want me to say I'm a garbage human being? I'll say it. I'm a terrible person. You want me to sign those papers without putting up a fight? I'll sign them this afternoon." She was talking a mile a minute now, just completely coming apart at the seams. "Just please, for the love of God, don't send those messages. Please, David, I'll give you anything you want." And there it was. The exact moment I'd been planning for 3 days straight. I really should have followed through. 2 weeks later, Marcus showed up at my door. He was carrying Thai food and had this look on his face like he was walking up to a wounded, unpredictable animal. "I know you blocked Rachel," he said. "I was just hoping you didn't block me, too." I really should have just slammed the door in his face. Instead, I stepped back and let him in. I'd been sitting in that house alone for 14 days, and the silence was starting to feel like I was drowning in it. He dropped the bags on my counter, pad thai and spring rolls, exactly what I always get. He remembered. But then again, Marcus always remembers the little things. That's what makes him such a solid friend, and honestly, it's probably why Rachel fell for him in the first place. "You look like hell," he told me. I just thanked him. "No, I mean it," he said. "When was the last time you even bothered to take a shower?" I didn't give him an answer because, truthfully, I couldn't remember. He didn't ask permission, he just started unpacking the food, found a couple of plates in my mostly empty cupboards, and served us both. We sat there and ate without saying a word for about 5 minutes before he finally broke the silence. "I should have told you about those messages," he said. I just muttered, "Yeah." I kept telling myself she'd stop, that it was just some phase or... He trailed off. "Look, there's no good excuse for it. I really screwed up." I pointed out that he didn't actually sleep with her, but even I knew that's a pretty low bar for a friendship. I almost let out a laugh. "The bar is practically underground at this point," I said. "But I guess you still cleared it." He put his fork down and looked me in the eye. "David, I need you to understand that I never wanted her. Not once. Look, she's beautiful and she's funny, and yeah, when she told me how invisible she felt, part of me wanted to fix it because that's just how I'm wired. But I never looked at her and wanted anything more than for her to just stop." I asked him if he ever actually told her that. "Every single time," he replied. "I told her she was ruining her marriage, that whatever she thought she was feeling wasn't real, and that I wasn't going to be the reason you got hurt." He looked at me straight on. "I told her if she didn't knock it off, I'd come tell you myself." But he never did. "No, because I'm a coward," he admitted with a bitter laugh. "I didn't want to be the one to blow up my best friend's entire life. Turns out, me staying quiet did the job anyway." We kept eating. The food tasted like cardboard to me, but I forced it down because it was the first actual meal I'd had in days. Marcus told me she'd signed the papers. No fight, no lawyers involved. She just gave me everything. "I know," I said. Marcus leaned back, studying me. "That's not nothing, man. She could have turned this into a living nightmare." I told him she already had. This part now. This was just dealing with the wreckage. He sat there for a second and then asked, "What happened to you, David? And don't tell me it was just that joke she made. This goes way deeper than that." He was right, of course. That joke was just the moment everything finally snapped into focus. But the truth is, the ground had been sliding out from under us for a long time. I was invisible too, I heard myself say out loud. I told him it had been months, maybe even a whole year. I'd come home and try to find some kind of connection, but she'd just look right through me like I was an annoying interruption to her real life. Everything I did was the wrong thing. I had the wrong tone, the wrong timing, the wrong words. So eventually, I just stopped trying. And I guess when I stopped trying, I just stopped caring, too. It didn't happen all at once. It was just a slow, gradual fade. Marcus asked me why I never said anything. I told him it was because saying something meant I had to admit we'd failed. It felt easier to just live these parallel lives and keep calling it a marriage. Jesus, David, he breathed. I told him the joke was just the permission I needed to stop pretending I wasn't already gone. Marcus was quiet for a long time after that. Then he said, "She really did love you, you know. She just didn't know how to fight for what you guys had without destroying you in the process." I told him that isn't love, that's just mutual destruction with a better marketing team. He actually laughed at that, despite the situation. "Fair point," he said. We finished up, and Marcus cleaned the kitchen without me having to ask. He moved around my kitchen like he'd done it 1,000 times before. And he had. Sunday dinners, parties, those nights where we'd just play games until late. Marcus has been in my life for 15 years. You don't just throw that away because Rachel tried to make things messy. "I should probably head out," he said eventually. "Yeah," I agreed. At the door, he turned back to look at me. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you, David. For walking away. For not turning into the kind of guy who just lives for revenge. That takes a lot of strength." After he left, I sat there in the dark wondering if strength is just another word for being completely exhausted. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. It was a text from Rachel's mother. She said she didn't know what happened between us, but that Rachel was a wreck. She begged me to call her. I blocked the number. Then another text came in from Rachel's sister. She said whatever Rachel did, she was sorry and she wouldn't stop crying. I blocked her, too. Then it was her best friend. She called me cruel. Said Rachel just made a mistake. I kept blocking them. They just kept coming, friends, family, people we worked with who only knew Rachel's version of the story. In her version, I'm the villain who just walked out without a word, the guy who took the money and vanished like a ghost. Part of me felt like I should explain myself. I should defend my name and show them the messages that prove she isn't some innocent victim. Instead, I just turned the phone off. Let them think whatever they want. I don't owe anyone the details of my pain just to prove I'm right. But that night, sleep wouldn't come. I kept thinking about what Marcus said, that she really did love me, and I started wondering if love even counts for anything when it's wrapped up in that much cruelty. At 3 in the morning, I unblocked Rachel's number and sent a text. "Are you okay?" Those 3 typing dots popped up almost immediately. She was wide awake, too. "No," she sent back. "Me neither," I replied. "I'm so sorry for everything," she wrote. "I'm sorry. I just didn't know how to love you without hurting you." I told her, "That isn't love, Rachel." Her last message was, "I know. But it's all I had." I sat there staring at my phone screen for a good 10 minutes, just trying to find some words that actually made sense. Eventually, I just hit delete on every single one of those screenshots. I decided right then that no one else was ever going to see them. Why? Because hurting you isn't going to make my own heart stop aching. She didn't reply for a long time, long enough that I thought she'd gone to sleep. Then, a message popped up, "You're a way better person than I deserve." "I'm really not," I told her. "I just don't have the fuel left in the tank to be as mean as I want to be." She said that's basically the same thing. Maybe it isn't, but then again, maybe it is. Maybe choosing to hold back when everything inside you wants to burn it all down is its own kind of strength. Or maybe it's just me being a coward and pretending it's a moral high ground. I don't even know anymore. "I hope you find someone who actually sees you," I wrote. "The real you. And I hope you find someone you don't feel the need to break. Good night, Rachel." "Goodbye, David," she replied. I blocked her number again, and this time, it felt like the final nail in the coffin. But that didn't stop her from showing up in my dreams. In the dream, we're back at that dinner party. She tells that same joke, but this time, I laugh. I mean, I really lose it. Because in that dream, it's just a joke, we're just regular people, and love doesn't have to be such a brutal uphill climb. I woke up knowing that version of us was a total fantasy. The David who could just laugh off a public humiliation. He doesn't exist. And the Rachel who would never dream of hurting him. She's a ghost, too. We were just two broken people who got really good at breaking each other, and we called it a marriage because we didn't have a better word for it. The video went viral on a Tuesday. I was stuck in a meeting at work, going over quarterly numbers, when my phone started vibrating like crazy. I tried to ignore it, but eventually, my boss stopped mid-sentence and told me I should probably step out if it was that urgent. I checked the screen. 43 missed calls. 67 texts. 3 voicemails from numbers I didn't even have saved. I walked into the hallway, and the first message was Marcus, sounding completely on edge, telling me to call him the second I got this. The second was from my brother, asking what the hell Rachel had done now. The third was Rachel herself, sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words, "I didn't know, please, David, I swear I didn't know." I hopped on Twitter and realized I was trending. Not by name, exactly, but the video was everywhere. People were tagging it with stuff like #dinnerpartyshame and #wifeexposed. Someone had recorded that joke Rachel made, and it was perfect. High definition, every word crystal clear. The camera caught her gesturing toward Marcus, the whole table laughing, and my own pathetic, forced smile. The clip was only 17 seconds long, but it already had over 3 million views in just 6 hours. The caption read, "When your wife tells the world your best friend is bigger. Savage or too far?" The comments section was a total bloodbath. People were saying she belonged to the streets, that this is why marriage is a scam. They talked about my face, saying you could see the exact moment my soul left my body. Everyone assumed she'd been sleeping with Marcus. Within hours, the internet had tracked down her Instagram, her photography business, her address, even her mom's Facebook page. People were calling her office and trashing her business with 1-star reviews. There was even a petition to cancel her for emotional abuse with nearly 50,000 signatures. I called Marcus, my voice feeling like it was coming from a mile away. "Who recorded that?" I asked. 6 months later, I ran into her at a coffee shop. It wasn't one of those dramatic movie moments where the music swells. It was just a boring coincidence. I was ordering, she was heading out, and we almost ran right into each other at the door. "Hi," she said. I just said it back. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, and her face looked softer, I guess. Like she'd finally stopped trying to put on a performance for everyone. She was just in jeans and a big sweater, no makeup at all. Honestly, she looked more real than she had in years. "You look good," I told her, and for once, I wasn't just being polite. She smiled and called me a liar. "I look like someone who gave up on trying," she said. I told her that was exactly what I meant. We stood there for a second, feeling awkward while other people ducked around us to get their coffee. She seemed like she was debating saying something, and then she asked if I had a minute to talk. We sat down at a small table by the window. We didn't even buy anything, we were just two people taking up space one last time. She told me she was moving to Portland for a fresh start. "That's good," I said. She told me she got a job at a nonprofit. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like real work, actually helping people. I asked if she was still doing photography. She said she shoots for herself now, but the business side of it is dead. Turns out, being internet famous for all the wrong reasons is a death sentence for a reputation-based business. I told her I was sorry about that. She told me not to be, that she deserved to lose it. Maybe not the way it went down, but she was finally starting to accept that her actions had consequences. We sat in silence for a bit, watching the city move on outside. Our little tragedy didn't seem to matter much to the rest of the world. "I've been in intensive therapy," she said out of the blue. 3 times a week. I just nodded. She let out a soft laugh and said, "Turns out I'm an Olympic-level talent when it comes to self-destruction. My therapist says I use intimacy as a weapon. I hurt people before they can get close enough to hurt me, because being the villain feels safer than being vulnerable." She asked if she hurt me first, or if I was the one who started it. I told her it was probably both, or maybe neither. I asked her if it even mattered anymore. She looked me in the eye and said we hurt each other because we didn't know how to ask for what we actually needed. Instead of being honest, we just let it all blow up. I asked her what it was she actually needed back then. She thought about it for a second and said, "I needed you to see me again. I needed a reaction. I wanted you to care enough to at least be angry instead of just being gone. So I said the most hateful thing I could think of, just so you'd feel something." I told her, "Mission accomplished." "Yeah," she whispered. I wiped at my eyes, not crying, but close. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know I've said it, but I need to say it again. What I did was cruel, and you didn't deserve any of it. Not the joke, not the stuff with Marcus. None of it. I was broken, and I broke you because I didn't know how to ask for help. I wanted to stay mad. I wanted to hold on to that feeling of being right that got me through the divorce and the viral mess. But I'm just so tired, and she'd already been dragged through the mud way worse than I ever could have planned." "I forgive you," I said. She looked like I'd just slapped her. "You don't have to do that," she said. I told her I knew that, but I was doing it anyway. I leaned back in my chair and explained that it wasn't because she deserved it, and it definitely didn't mean we were getting back together. I was doing it because holding on to that anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. I'm done poisoning myself. She nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I forgive you, too," she said. I asked her what she had to forgive me for. She looked at me dead on and said, "You left without a single conversation. You drained the accounts without a word. You kept those screenshots like you were waiting for the right time to pull the trigger. You became cold and calculating because I pushed you there, but they were still your choices. We both turned into people we don't like. So yeah, I forgive you for that. It was the most honest we've been with each other in years. Maybe ever." I asked if she was happy, and she said she was getting there. She asked me the same, and I gave her the same answer. She grabbed her bag to head out, but at the door, she turned back one last time. "David, about the video, whoever posted that, they have no idea what it did to my life. But I need you to know that the video you posted, the one where you defended me, that literally saved me. I was drowning, and you threw me a rope. You would have done the same for me." "No," she said quietly. "I wouldn't have. That's the difference between us, David. You're a good man, even when you don't want to be." Then she walked out before I could say a word. I sat there for an hour, watching my coffee get cold and people watching through the glass. My phone buzzed. It was Marcus. "Beer tonight?" I told him yeah. "Your place? Bringing anyone?" I told him just me. He mentioned he had some updates on his house hunt because he's moving to Seattle for a new job. I guess he needs a fresh start, too. We'll be on the same coast, different cities, but closer than we've been in a long time. Some friendships just survive the fire, I guess. That night, sitting on Marcus's couch and feeling the buzz of the beer, I told him everything, the coffee shop, the apology, the forgiveness. He asked if I thought she actually meant it. I asked him if it even mattered. He figured it didn't. We just sat there in silence, watching some game we didn't care about. He asked if I ever thought about trying again, not with her, just with anyone. I told him I would, eventually. Once I remember how to be a person who isn't defined by everything he lost. He told me that was pretty profound, and I told him I was just really drunk. He laughed, and so did I. It felt good. Easy. Uncomplicated in a way things haven't been for a long, long time. Later, driving home, I thought about that video. It's still out there somewhere. Those viral moments never really stay dead. But it doesn't define us anymore. We're just two people who loved each other the wrong way and somehow survived it. We're carrying our scars into separate lives, and honestly, that feels like mercy.